Hey YouTube, what's going on? It's Richard, founder of Short Term Rental University and professional real estate developer, boutique hotel owner, and I'm actually coming to you live right now from our boutique hotel here in Nosara, Costa Rica, where Erica and I, come say hi, sweetie, where Erica and I are actually social distancing during this massive coronavirus scare, hysteria, and panic. And I wanted to share with you some thoughts about what I think is happening, how long I think it will continue, what the opportunity set looks like for short-term rental hosts, and what we should be thinking about in the stock market. So I took some notes, which I rarely do, but I want to make sure that I'm giving you as much information as I possibly can to help you get through this difficult period. And here's what I can assure you. We will get through this difficult period. In fact, with every single passing day, we get closer, right? Like the number of people working on the coronavirus vaccine is increasing. The number of people who are infected and infecting others is starting to decrease as we're starting to quarantine and social distance. And here in Costa Rica, Eric and I came down here for 1 week on a mission to try and find a really great legacy property for me, and now the borders in Costa Rica are closed. So we can exit, but no more foreigners are going to come into the country. Only locals, ticos like myself, I can come and go. But if Erica were to leave, she could not return until April 14th, which is nearly 30 days from now. So you may wonder what's going on in my boutique hotel. Well, not all, but very many of the reservations have been canceled. The hotel, in essence, during our peak season here in March, is now virtually empty. We just had a yoga retreat exit. The whole place was sold out. It was a full hotel buyout. And today was their last day, so they're returning home to the States. But nonetheless, you as hosts, I want to share with you a couple of thoughts about the coronavirus and also what to think about the stock market and how to think about hosting in the future. Like, has the business model really fundamentally changed? Have valuations changed? Have travelers changed their preference to stay at Airbnbs? So let's get right into it. Again, I'm not a medical doctor and I don't have a lot of specific information about the coronavirus other than what I read. But my understanding is a lot of the things that we're doing right now are really effective, such as social distancing and quarantine. And in fact, we may have gone a little far, right? Like, we don't necessarily need to do all of this. And we probably did it a little bit too late. Some of these measures that we are taking right now, like Costa Rica closing its borders and New York City considering a lockdown, San Francisco is in a lockdown, and then there's curfews in all parts, and all these companies are closing stores and restaurants and so on and so forth. Like, that will actually be really helpful, and I only wish we had done it, say, a week or two ago. As extreme as it seemed then, in hindsight, it wasn't extreme enough. We should have done it then. But even doing it now, I think we're going to continue to see the number of cases being reported increasing and increasing exponentially, and that's due in large measure to the fact that we have more tests, and so consequently we should expect more results. And that's kind of filtering into the marketplace right now. What people are starting to realize is all of the things that created panic and anxiety and nervous energy about the coronavirus, at a certain point we get a little bit accustomed to it, or we start to expect it. And so the news no longer drives that panic and fear, and that's selling. What we've been seeing in the stock market in particular is massive risk off, massive deleveraging. And I've warned repeatedly on multiple occasions that we were long overdue for some sort of correction. I just had no idea what it would be, but that's why it's called risk. That's the black swan event. Nobody foresaw coronavirus. Nobody thought that that would be the reason that the longest bull market in history would quickly, rapidly, in 16 days, enter into a bear market. And in fact, just yesterday was the third largest percentage decline in the history of the stock market. The largest decline ever was in 1987, and I lived through that period of time. I had friends whose families were changed permanently due to those losses, and kids pulled out of private schools, people committed suicide. I mean, we never want to see that again. And then the second largest drawdown was actually in 1929, the Great Depression. And then yesterday, coronavirus, March 16th, the third largest drawdown in history. So what's going on, and what's happening here? Well, I would say the following. When things are priced to perfection, as the stock market was, and there's a ton of leverage and there's a ton of confidence in the system, and everyone's continuing to bet, pushing the bet that it's going to continue, the dance is going to continue, the party's going to continue, the music's going to never stop, it's just going to keep going and going and going. All you really need is a sneeze to disrupt the whole thing. And you add a sneeze with media concern and fear, and rightfully so. The coronavirus is deadly. The coronavirus is more powerful than the flu. We're starting to see all of the results of all that. But that said, it does not warrant going into a recession. It does not warrant all of the anxiety that we've seen, and it does not warrant the trillions of dollars of risk assets being thrown out indiscriminately. I mean, there are certain values right now that are present that people will be really pleased if they're purchasing. And if you have a little bit of disposable cash or savings set aside for a rainy day, I'm going to encourage you to invest systematically, dollar cost average, by say 1/4 or 1/5 or 1/10 of your equity over 1 week, 1 month, 5 months. I'm not calling for the bottom here, but I am seeing the following. The news is no longer causing as much fear and panic. People start to realize that the curve is flattening. So even though the number of cases reported are increasing exponentially, we would expect that, and the news is starting to react to that. And then all the fiscal and monetary stimulus that's happening worldwide, where 0% interest rates in the United States and practically globally, that will filter through the system. And there's some really interesting things that are happening with mortgage-backed securities being continued to be purchased by the Federal Reserve, with commercial paper, with injection of repo dollars. So there's a lot of systematic fiscal and monetary policies that are going to work their way through the system to help calm and get us through the next phase. Now, just note this, all of that injection of liquidity will come with a price. It's not like we're going to be perfect forever, but we're basically kicking the can down the road. Like at some point in the future, we will pay for this stimulus, but today it's here to reassure us and comfort us, and we as hosts should start to think about our business. And the question is this, I own this boutique hotel, I'm under contract for a few other opportunities via 1031 exchange. Has anything that I've seen changed my outlook on short-term rentals, the Airbnb opportunity set? It has changed my opinion of Airbnb, the company, but what about short-term rentals and travelers visiting unique places and unique homes and people like myself and yourself being hosts? Has that changed? And I would say the answer is no. And perhaps, if anything, people are going to be more inclined to stay in smaller locations rather than the big 1,000-room hotel, the big resort, right? But here's an interesting fact. Whenever we see something that we did not expect, a black swan, we then understand it and we prepare for it in the future. So will there be another virus? 100%, right? We've seen SARS, MERS, coronavirus, bovine, foot and mouth disease. It goes on and on. We see these all the time. But now that we've seen what the pandemic can do and the global shutdown and the recession and into possibly even a depression, we will prepare for it, we'll behave differently, those lockdowns will happen sooner, and so history won't repeat itself exactly. We'll be prepared for that, but we won't be prepared for the next black swan. There could be something else. And so the best thing to do is have a sound business model, a sound approach to conducting your entrepreneurial activities in and around short-term rentals. And what do I mean by that? Don't use excessive leverage. Some leverage, you've heard me teach on this, is good. That's on the optimal frontier. Too much leverage is bad. Too much leverage is what's leading rental arbitrage to blow up. Those companies, I predicted they would blow up in 2020 in an earlier video. They are in fact blowing up, and I feel terrible for the people that are being laid off and the entrepreneurs, and like they just didn't see this coming. And not that I saw coronavirus coming, but what I did know was this. That's a highly levered investment strategy. All you need is a couple of months of rent, let's say first month, last month, security deposit, and some furniture, and you can open up shop. So you can do that and you can scale really quickly. And the problem is this, there's an inherent asset liability duration mismatch. What does that mean? That means that you are signing a 12-month lease or a 2-year lease or a 10-year lease, and then you're chopping up that long-term lease into short-term overnight stays. It's very similar to the WeWork blow-up that blew up billions of investors' money. So there's a highly levered asset liability duration mismatch. And when something happens so that people stop traveling and stop booking those nightly rates, those entrepreneurs, those business owners, they still have their liability obligations. They still need to pay rent. They need to pay for their leases. They need to pay for their payroll. And with no revenue coming in and lots of money going out, it's only a matter of runway before they actually implode or blow up. And I feel terrible about that, but I hope many of you have listened to me and heeded my advice and been more cautious or done it on a smaller scale, and that some of you are not feeling that pain. But if you're an equity owner, we haven't seen, it hasn't been enough time yet for the real estate market to really react. There's some deals that are blowing up, people are walking away from escrow, people are renegotiating prices down, but by and large, the real estate market will lag this. So if we do get to the bottom of the coronavirus scare, and we do get to the bottom of like forced liquidations of over-leveraged stocks and bonds and every other asset class, it's been risk off, everything is being thrown out. When we get to that bottom, and by the way, every passing day, there's fewer and fewer sellers, right? There's fewer and fewer people infecting other people with coronavirus. There's also fewer and fewer people selling risk assets. And so just the passage of time will actually start to form like a foundation or a bottom. And then once we get the all clear, with all the stimulus that's been injected into the economy, I anticipate we'll get a very strong V recovery. And I just don't know when that starts. It could be a month from now, it could be 2 months from now, it could be 4 months or 6 months from now. But I do anticipate that we will see a very strong recovery, and real estate prices may be spared. In fact, they might even continue to rise because the low interest rates, again, we're in a zero interest rate environment, not only in America, but in the entire world. That could actually boost asset prices, including real estate. And so purchasing real estate remains a really attractive opportunity, especially if you can't stomach all of this volatility. And as far as guest preferences and hosting preferences, I think the real lesson here is to diversify. Diversify away from Airbnb, diversify away from VRBO, create your own website. We've started the Host Saver platform, and hundreds or more of you have started your own website to start taking direct bookings. And the reason we encourage you to do that is because there you can set your own policies and you can set your own cancellations, and no one's going to change how you want to run your business. Now, I personally believe if people can't travel and there's shutdowns and lockdowns and so on, the right thing to do as a hospitable host and to understand and empathize with people is to give them their money back anyway. I understand all of the negativity around Airbnb making that decision on our behalf, even if we had strict policies. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the right thing to do. I don't think any of us would feel good taking people's money that couldn't stay with us for reasons not related to them. And I want to share with you a few more thoughts. I've written some down, so let me take a quick peek here. So the first thing I want to share with you, and this isn't related to anything except sort of life experience, but it's really important. How do I stay so optimistic always through like thick and thin and unexpected and shocks and losses? And I take losses. I've had massive amounts of loss through this like dislocation, whether it's in the stock market or the cryptocurrency market or anything like that. But it's because I manage risk properly, intelligently, and so I'm not in a position where I'm betting the farm, and consequently, I live another day. This hotel can be empty for a month or 2 or 3, and I'm okay. My Airbnbs can have cancellations, and I'm not happy about it, but I'm okay. And I want to encourage you to grow organically at the pace with the amount of leverage or a mortgage that you feel comfortable with, so that you can live another day, so that you're not like whipsawed all over the place and going crazy and anxious and worried. And I would also say this, there's a lot of hosts out there that are really angry and upset and frustrated, and I empathize with that. I totally get it. We're doing this for a profit. Many of us need the money to pay our mortgage and to pay our utilities and to put food on the table, and I understand that and I appreciate it and I empathize with it. But at the same time, it's really important that we remain optimistic, because where your attention goes, energy flows. So if you're angry and frustrated and upset and blaming Airbnb and so on and so forth, you are by definition going to have a bad day, a bad week, a bad month, maybe a bad, if you live your life that way, an unhappy life. Conversely, with the exact same set of facts, if you find some good in it, well, I'm happy that people aren't traveling or getting sick. I'm happy that people are able to take care of their own families and they don't have to worry about the cost of this. Or I'm happy that VRBO didn't cancel. Or I'm happy that I'm healthy and not sick. Whatever it is that you find happiness in, find something positive in everything. And a funny thing happens. Your life goes from bad to good. All of a sudden, your focus and your energy and attention are on the positive things. And that's the way you walk around life, just being positive and upbeat. It doesn't minimize or reduce the frustration. It doesn't make the bad things go away. It's just how you interpret it and how you handle it, how you conduct yourself, and how you present for other people. And at a time like this, your family, your friends, your community, they need leadership and they need optimism and positivity, because we all know that we're going to get through this. It's just a matter of time. And it's also, how do we get through this? I, for one, would rather get through this being positive and supportive. I want to be here to help you and others. And I just encourage you to lead your life from a point of positivity, so that you don't have to think about all this negative stuff, because that in turn will create a negative life. The second thing I want to share with you is that all of this dislocation and pain and hurt and so on, it's kind of necessary. It flushes out a lot of the excess out of like the system. It flushes out a lot of the excess of people that shouldn't be here in the first place. And so whether it's the stock market leverage and the risk exposure, or it's the number of people that came to the Airbnb platform that aren't really quality hosts or aren't hospitable or are doing it just for scale and running a business. I've said before that the pendulum swings too far and that hosts would go out of business, like close their doors, they wouldn't make enough return, or they wouldn't enjoy it, or that they would blow up, or whatever the case may be. Well, that day of reckoning is here. There will be less hosts going forward than there were just 2 weeks ago. And so what does that mean? Well, the supply has decreased significantly. Thousands of units by these rental arbitrageurs in mass markets have gone away, disappeared forever, right? So if you are a host in one of those markets, you have far less competition. So that's the supply side, definitely going down. Hosts are closing the door. Some are giving up. I see it in the Facebook group where people are sharing with us that they're going back to long-term and all this stuff. And I said this would happen. Now it's here. So that's the supply side. On the demand side, everything is stopped, right? This hotel is empty. My Airbnbs are empty. Your Airbnbs are empty. But has it stopped permanently? Or has it just paused and been deferred in the future? And my bet, just kind of like that same V-shaped recovery at some point in the future, is that traveler demand will increase really, really quickly. People are going to be sick of being quarantined. People are going to be sick of, postponing their weddings and high school graduations and all the things that everybody loves to live for, and excitement and sharing and travel and experience. That will resume. And I think it's going to resume with a bang. I think people are really going to be super excited to get on with their life. And consequently, what does it mean for us as hosts? Well, less supply, more demand, prices should go up. And since our costs are fixed, right? Like my lease, my mortgage hasn't increased in price. My utilities haven't increased in price. Any of my supplies haven't increased in price. So increased demand, decreased supply, fixed costs, boom, profits should go up. So I think any of us that are looking at this and saying, how am I going to make ends meet, or what does this mean for us? We just have to survive for another day, get to that other side, because I think on the other side of all of this, which I think could be a couple of weeks or a couple of months, hopefully by summer, I think we're going to see a really robust summer travel season. And that's, assuming that coronavirus gets contained and the curve does flatten and the restrictions come off. And I can't control any of that or predict any of that. But if that were to happen, that's my anticipation. And I would also say that it's a fortunate thing for most of us that this is happening right at the end of March, which is generally a good season, and before summer. And so like this interim period here is often a shoulder season. It's kind of a slow season anyway. So if we're going to have a dislocation, the timing is pretty good for the vast majority of hosts. All right, so here are a few more things that I want you to think about as hosts to prepare for not only like your business, but also future situations. I want you to examine your portfolio, whether it's stocks or short-term rentals, etc. And I filmed a video on this before. Anything that is a loser or anything that is like a turnaround story or something that you're like hoping works, it's time to shed that, right? Like now you've seen what risk off looks like. It's not going to turn around any better. So if you've got a stock that's a dog and you don't really like it, or you have a underperforming short-term rental, now is the time to sell it. Even at these lower levels, just exit, because it'll free your mind to find better opportunities. So take a really critical look, be honest with yourself. What have you been holding on to for the wrong reasons? And now just get out, right? Like it'll really be very cathartic for you to exit. You'll have a lot more positivity and a lot more energy, and you'll start to find opportunities, and you can always make it back. So don't worry about being wrong. Don't worry about taking a loss. Some of the best trades all traders make in the world is taking a loss. And if you take it earlier, even better. But you want to exit losing positions so that you can live for another day. The second thing I want you to think about is to reduce your expenses. Anything that's discretionary that you don't absolutely need, if you're on a tight financial budget or you're worried about your finances, reduce all discretionary spending, and anything that you can do to reduce your expenses, do it now. Not because you need to, but because it'll give you that clarity of mind, that peace of mind, knowing that you can live for another day and that you can survive, because we know on the other end of this there's some really great opportunities, but you got to get there. The third thing that I want to share with you is that I want you to remain calm and recognize that this is a point in time and it will pass. We all know that once we get past this fear, it will normalize. It might stay around for a little while, but it will normalize and it'll start to resume, and we're in a very healthy, robust global economy, so things will start to rebound. So if you feel that fear, if you feel that anxiety, recognize it as such, try to minimize it, curtail it, take some actions to reduce it by reducing your expenses, reducing your losers, eliminating your losers from your portfolio, and just try and relax that fear, because that's all this is right now. And if you have some savings, or you've been diligently saving and being a responsible host and really sort of treating this like a business, I want you to start to inch into or leg into the stock market, maybe via S&P 500 indexes, but just start to leg in, dollar cost average in, set a systematic approach, buy whatever it is, 1/5 of your portfolio every week for 5 weeks, or 1/5 of your portfolio every month for 5 months, but just set it and forget it, and then don't look at it, don't worry about the market and what happens between now and say 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and you'll be really happy, you'll thank me later. And finally, as far as it relates to your calendar and trying to fill the calendar back up, it may not happen. If there's a lot of quarantines and people are really not traveling in lockdowns, just chalk it up and try and think about something else. But if you're going to do that, do what I do. I use dynamic pricing, which I really recommend. We'll include a link for Beyond Pricing, and reduce the next 60 days. Not reduce your prices always, just for the next 60 days while this pandemic is playing itself out. And by the time summer rolls around, your prices will be back to normal, and I think in fact they might even go higher. But if you're looking to book more trips now, go ahead and reduce your calendar prices. I've reduced mine by 20%, and then I set a floor. If people want even more discounts, I just don't negotiate. I say, no, there's somebody else, and I'm sure there is people that need the money more, so they're getting hit, and they're get people in their rooms, and that's fantastic. But do not make the mistake of decreasing your prices permanently and then having to remember to adjust them going forward, because you will get picked off. Somebody will book your 4th of July weekend or your Labor Day weekend or your Memorial Day weekend at a price that you won't believe, and they'll get a great deal and you won't be able to cancel. So if you're going to discount, use that calendar feature where you only discount for, say, the next 30 days or the next 60 days, and that way you don't have to worry about peak season. And in short, I just really want to share with you that as painful as this has been and as scary as this has been, we've seen things like this before. We know what to do. I wanted to share some of these ideas with you. I don't have any, magic solutions or anything like that, but I'm here to support you, and we've had an incredible amount of people in the Facebook group turning to the Facebook group for support and positivity, and I encourage you to come join our Facebook group. I'm much more active there during this period of time because it's kind of in real time. So if you need a little bit more hand-holding than an occasional, every other day YouTube video, please join us in the Facebook group, and just recognize this, friends. This will pass. I think the vast majority of the worst is behind us. I think that we're starting to put in some foundation. I think people aren't overreacting to the news as people start to see so-and-so is infected and so-and-so is infected and this number of people have tested positive and so on. At a certain point, we start to expect it, right? So the stock market is a discounting mechanism, and we've already discounted a lot of this into the market. And between the federal stimulus, the monetary policy, the fiscal policy, we are going to start to see some of this liquidity come through the system, and I think it's going to result in some really good opportunities on a go-forward basis. And I, for one, have had more opportunities, and I'm under contract and in escrow for more short-term rentals and more boutique hotels and things that I'm going to share with you on this channel going forward. None of them have I walked away from. None of them have I changed my mind about. Now, it could happen, but I don't anticipate that happening, and I'm sharing with you at a point in time, even with this hotel empty, even with my Airbnbs empty, even with the stock market having the 3rd worst day in the history just yesterday, even with all the losses and all the fear and the panic and the blood in the streets and all of that, I'm committed to my long-term game plan, and I encourage you to do the exact same. So please, do me a favor, like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, come on, friends, the time is now. Let's go. The best is yet to come. Thank you. Hey, thanks so much for watching that video. I just want to share with you that the HostSaver one-click website tool is now live. People are on it, they're using it all the time, and we really want to encourage you to take control of your financial future by building your own brand and building your own business and getting off the dependency of the platforms. Take charge and control of your own future and develop relationships with your clients, the people that have come and stayed in your home. Tell them about discounts or specials that you have. Tell them that you expanded. Tell them anything that you want. Write blogs and start to get your own traction right? Attract your own tribe using your own website. This is what businesses do. It's 2020. The time is now for people like me and you to build our own website and become platform agnostic. So go ahead and click in the description below to register for the Host Saver. One click and you have your own custom, absolutely gorgeous, works flawlessly website. Can't wait to see you there. Let's go, friends.